are just about 2 weeks away from the reopening of school, and we all know that this year it'll be much different than before. COVID-19 has undoubtedly caused us to rethink the way we teach, learn, and behave. And so in today's Jamaica Magazine, we reiterate some of the new safety protocols for the new school year so that you and yours can be prepared come September morn. Stay right there.
Jamaica Social Investment Fund, JSIF, celebrating over 20 years of investment in community development. JSIF has forged relationships with international funding partners as well as private and public sector entities. Let us continue to invest to reduce vulnerabilities. Let us build our social capital and resilient infrastructures to ensure full participation in Vision 2030. JSIF, investing for community development.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Friday, August 21. Jamaica saw its biggest spike in confirmed COVID-19 cases yesterday, prompting a meeting today of the Cabinet Committee set up to monitor and address government's response to the pandemic. In a virtual press briefing Thursday evening, Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton gave the sobering news of 98 new cases in a single day. 10 of the samples were from the backlog, while 88 were from current samples tested. Most of the new cases, 53, were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew, followed by 17 in St. Catherine, 7 in Clarendon, 5 in St. Thomas, 4 each in St. James and Manchester, 3 each in St. Anne and St. Mary, and 2 in Westmoreland. The minister also confirmed one more COVID-19 related death, the 15th since the outbreak started. On a more positive note, another 16 patients have recovered and released from care. Still, the one-day spike and general increase in recent days has prompted the health authorities to warn persons that increased vigilance is critical, now more than ever.
At this point in the COVID response, I would advise all Jamaicans to assume that every single person you come in contact with is potentially a carrier of the COVID-19 virus. Every single person, barring none.
It is being spread right across the country, and they're spread enough for everybody to be cautious and to take the necessary precautions.
Meanwhile, the chief medical officer has reported that surveys and assessments in affected communities reveal that most Jamaicans know about COVID-19 and the measures to prevent its spread, but do not believe it can affect them. She gave the update Thursday evening, saying this sense of complacency is a large part of the problem. Dr. Bisesa McKenzie is urging Jamaicans to change this mindset.
The numbers that we are seeing are showing that it can affect you. And the fact that we have seen an increase in the number of cases that are local, that we have categorized as a local transmission, not linked to an imported case or an import-related case, suggests that we are coming in contact with persons who are infected with the virus, who do not know that they have been infected, who do not recognize that they had come in contact with somebody who was infected and are now transmitting the virus.
She also expressed concern that the number of elderly persons now becoming infected suggests that younger persons are bringing the virus home to their older relatives.
We must exercise more caution because coming out of more cases, we can go into a position where we have more hospitalizations and more deaths.
In other COVID-related news, Labour and Social Security Minister Mike Henry is encouraging more organizations to adopt and use flexible work arrangements in light of the coronavirus pandemic. The minister's message was delivered by Chief Technical Director in the ministry, Dion Jennings, at a virtual productivity forum on August 20. Minister Henry says the increased use of flexible work arrangements will lead to a safe, healthy, and productive execution of jobs, especially at this time. He says it may also help to reduce absenteeism and enhance employee engagement, morale, and motivation. Flexible work arrangements enable employers and employees to negotiate and select the hours, days, and time that are best suited to the organizational goals. In the meantime, Mr. Henry says the Labour Ministry is developing a telecommuting policy, which is currently in its draft stage. That policy will formalize the arrangements that provide employees with the opportunity to work from a location other than the central work site. Education Minister Carl Samuda says schools to be used for voting on Election Day will be sanitized before the institutions are allowed to reopen for classes. He was speaking at the Jamaica Teachers Association's 56th annual conference, held at the Montego Bay Convention Center on Wednesday. The Education Minister says the schools will not open if the authorities are not satisfied that they have been fully sanitized. The general election is to be held on Thursday, September 3, and schools are set to reopen on Monday, September 7. Minister Samuda says an arrangement has been reached between his ministry and the electoral authorities. He is meanwhile encouraging teachers and school administrators to report instances where the sanitization works have not been undertaken. In other news, a greater number, approximately 97% of all accounts at deposit-taking institutions, are to be covered under the Deposit Insurance Scheme, DIS, which provides protection to depositors of commercial banks, merchant banks, and building societies. This is the effect of an increase in the maximum payout to depositors in prescribed circumstances from $600,000 to $1.2 million. In accordance with Section 18, Subsection 1 of the Deposit Insurance Act, the increase is being effected through a ministerial order that has been approved by both Houses of Parliament. It will take effect on August 31, 2020, after publication in the Gazette. The development was announced on Thursday in a statement from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Portfolio Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says doubling the maximum payout will help increase depositors' confidence in deposit-taking institutions, support market discipline, and ensure continued financial system stability. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
On Election Day, all electors must wear a mask and have their hands sanitized. Electors must observe 6 feet physical distancing and remove your mask when instructed by the presiding officer so you may be identified. You will be issued a ballot along with a pencil and directed to the voting booth. Hand your ballot to the presiding officer and place your pencil in the box for used pencils. Sanitize your hand before dipping your finger in the electoral ink. This is a message from the Electoral Commission of Jamaica.
As promised earlier, we have a breakdown of what students at various levels of the education sector can expect for the upcoming school year. From all you need to know about health and safety procedures to teaching and learning methods and grouping guidelines.
As per usual, school opens on the first Monday in September. And so the 7th of September, our official learning program will begin.
With the new academic year expected to begin in just a few weeks, a lot has to be done to ensure there is no spread of COVID-19 among the school population. Here's what to expect. In order to uphold the social distancing guidelines recommended by government, a phased blended learning approach will be adopted by a large number of institutions this year. While smaller schools will resume normal operations, large high schools and very large primary schools will adopt a rotational system.
We have now 569 schools that are able to operate normally. So it means that everybody will be in the same space every day. And of course, we have to observe the physical distancing. So with the infrastructure that we have in place in these institutions, they will be able to accommodate their fully enrolled students. And some of these schools will get what we call temporary learning spaces via tent or via rental agreements with nearby institutions such as our churches or those that have conference halls or so forth. We have approximately 303 of our schools that will operate what we call the rotational model. And the rotational model, parents, really means that some days some students will operate in the virtual space from home and while others are at school. And then those students who will be at home on one day will come back into the physical school another day, and other students will work from home.
Some schools will extend their operation times so that students can attend classes in phases.
We have the extended day model as well, where Some schools will have our children coming in from 8 o'clock to about 2:30, and others will join from 10 o'clock to about 3:30. So it's a staggered shift in a sense, and that will avail some physical space. And so persons can be kept safe in the environment, both teachers and staff members.
All students at the primary and secondary levels will have their temperature checked upon arrival. They must wear masks at all times, conduct regular hand washing and sanitization, and maintain 6 feet apart social distancing at all times. But for those parents who are still nervous about sending their children back to the physical class setting, homeschooling is always an option.
We have a homeschooling framework in place, which is monitored by our independent schools unit. And so parents who are interested can apply through our independent schools unit at isu@moey.gov.jm. And we will provide you with the guidelines, and of course we will support you through this process if you are so interested in this approach.
To address the learning lapse experienced by some students during remote teaching and learning, all students returning to the classroom will be assessed.
When we resume, we'll be supporting our teachers to conduct or to administer the assessment diagnostic instruments for our grade 1s to grade 9 students. And the school principals at the secondary level for grades 10 to 13 will develop those assessment instruments at the school level, and we will support them in the administration process. We will also assist our schools in marking and analyzing the data so we can develop the individual learning plans and the remedial programs that will be required to get the students back on their learning path. Our ECIs and our basic schools, our infant schools, they will also commence in September 7th. They will also experience their simulation week activities to make sure that our babies are sensitized and their parents are sensitized and the staff members are sensitized as to the protocols. Our babies are a little different. The groupings are smaller. The children 0 to 12 months, they will be grouped 1 to 5, so 5 children to 1 adult, to make sure that all will be safe. For our babies 13 months to 35 months, the grouping is 1 adult to 8 children. And for the 3-year-old to 5-year-old, the grouping is 1 adult to 10 children. Our infant schools and our primary schools will do the same kind of physical distancing. They will mark their classroom spaces. So we are using signage, we are using markers, where students will sit, where students can stand if they are waiting for something, where parents will enter, where parents should not enter. All of those markers will be at our schools.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness has advised that children 0 to 2 years old are exempted from the wearing of masks, so it is important that persons entering their learning environment are closely monitored and that physical distancing is maintained as much as possible.
In terms of start times, most of the tertiary institutions will resume as per usual towards the end of August with their returning students. As we know, our grade 11 and grade 12-13 students would have just completed or just about be completing their CSEC CAPE examinations, and the results from those examinations will therefore be available much later than normal. And so the institutions have agreed to delay the start for incoming students, new students, and so they will not be disenfranchised. In a number of instances, they will rework the academic calendar to allow teaching to go on into December and then do their end of semester examinations in January.
As it relates to safety protocols, all the guidelines that have been developed by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information will also be implemented at the tertiary level.
It therefore means that classes will be delivered using mixed modalities. Some institutions are going to offer some programs fully online. Others will facilitate some students on campus, clearly in limited numbers, to ensure that the requisite protocols are observed. Some institutions have already indicated that their capacity for boarding will be reduced in the upcoming academic year. It's therefore important that students who would have normally accessed boarding begin to communicate with their institutions, ensure that they know what processes will be used to determine, and they know what space will be provided.
The plans that we have is informed by the health precautions that we have to observe. There are no compromises as we try to make sure that your students are safe and that when they come home to you, you continue to be safe as we work together to protect all of us in this country.
Find out where you are to vote by calling the EOJ or checking the EOJ website. Remember to bring your voter ID card. Current voter ID cards are valid until December 2020. Remember, you may still vote without your ID card, but the process will be longer. Listen to the instructions of the presiding officer. Mark your ballot behind the voting booth and return your ballot to the presiding officer folded. Once the counterfoil is removed, your ballot cannot be traced back to you. Dip your finger in the ink and watch as your ballot is deposited into the ballot box.
Your vote is your voice. Make it count.
So, a few months ago, the 2020 PEP results were released by the Minister of Education, Kyle Samuda. He revealed that the grading strategy was a little different this year due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Just in case you forgot, here's a rundown of the overall results for students who sat the exams this year.
Due to the COVID-19 outbreak in Jamaica, the Ministry of Health took the decision to cancel this year's sitting of the Grade 6 Performance Task and curriculum-based tests of the Primary Exit Profile, PEP.
The computation of the placement scores for this year, therefore, comprised 7 tests: Grade 4 Literacy, Grade 4 Numeracy, Grade 5 PEP Performance Task, Mathematics, Grade 5 PEP Performance Task in Science, Grade 5 PEP Performance Task in Social Studies, Grade 5 PEP Performance Task in Language Arts, and Grade 6 Abilities Test. The work that they did in Grade 4 and the assessment of Grade 4, we attributed 30% to that. Grade 5, we attributed 20% to that. And Grade 6, 50%.
$39,689 students registered to sit the Grade 6 PEP exams this year.
Of the 39,689 students, 38,918 were deemed to be eligible to move on to high school and were placed accordingly. 100% of the students were placed in high schools. 16% of students were placed in secondary level schools that are in close proximity to the schools that they currently attend. 80%, or 31,017 of the students were placed in one of their preferred schools. A further 4%, or 1,606 students were placed manually in secondary level schools in proximity to the addresses that they submitted at registration. 525 students, or 1%, were placed in private schools this year. 38,393, or 99%, were placed in public schools. As we adhere to this physical distancing guideline, the ministry is guided by the opinions and the suggestions of the Ministry of Health, with whom we have been collaborating extensively. A deliberate attempt was made to reduce the number of spaces allocated in our public school system. The Ministry, through a Memorandum of Understanding, has engaged the services of 25 private high schools in accommodating grade 7 students for September 2020.
The Education Minister says 49 students with special needs registered for the exams, and all were placed in high schools. The same was the case for those PEP students who are beneficiaries under the Program of Advancement through Health and Education, PATH.
84% of those students, I'm happy to say, on the program, which is a program of advancement through health and education, PATH, were placed in the schools of their choice. 12% were placed by proximity, that is, your proximity to where the school is from where you live, and 4% were manually placed.
All students were placed at the various high schools based on 4 proficiency levels, namely beginning, developing, proficient, and highly proficient.
In both 2019 and 2020, 60% of the population represents a national average. The results from students' performance in grade 5 in 2019 show that more than 50% of all the students are at the proficiency and highly proficient level across the social studies and languages section. 45 to 49 of all students were proficient and highly proficient in maths and science. It should be noted that even though the tests and components used for this year are different, the mechanism used to place students remains the same. The fundamental mechanism remains the same. We are confident that even in this unprecedented COVID-19 crisis, the grades used to place students this year are fair, they are valid, and they are reliable, reflecting a consistent distribution.
A small percentage of students were not able to sit the exams this year as a result of health or economic circumstances, but the ministry says they will not be neglected.
There will be a statistical model that will be prepared to accommodate them so that we will be in a position to place them appropriately. They are not going to be left out of the system. This is a very, very important occasion for Jamaica. It is the first time that we are experiencing this kind of situation. It has been extremely challenging. I am very, very, very proud. I cannot tell you how proud I am of the experts, the committed teachers who have brought us through a very challenging period.
So you were just reminded about the changes that had to be made to this year's PEP sittings. You also learned that, despite the adjustments in grading, the Ministry of Education was pleased with the overall results. Up next, we speak to 2 students who performed well and are looking towards even greater accomplishments at their new high schools.
The performance task and curriculum-based test of the primary exit profile PEP exams had to be cancelled this year due to the COVID-19 outbreak. And as a result of this, a hybrid approach was used to grade and place the students. Despite the adjustments, 80% of the students who sat the exams this year were placed in one of their preferred high schools. And guess what? Today we'll be speaking to 2 of these PEP stars who excelled in their exams despite the challenges.
Hello Jamaica, my name is Jenna Knight and I'm a student of St. Jude's Primary School in Kingston, and this September I will be attending the Holy Childhood High School.
Hello everyone, my name is Dante Skirvin and I previously attended Providence Kindergarten Preparatory School in the parish of St. Thomas. This September I will be attending Campion College.
I feel great because I worked hard, I got motivated, and I studied really hard for this exam. My overall score was 80s and 90s because I studied really hard, because my teacher told me I need to study and motivate me to do it.
I'm very elated at my performance this year. Well, my score were like, most of them were over 90. I got 100 in the ability test that I did earlier in grade 6.
It is evident that Dante and Gianna did really well in their exams. And I know you might be wondering, how did they do it? What are some of the challenges they had? And how did they overcome them? Listen up.
I went to Saturday classes and extra classes and also went to winter classes because I really needed that time to learn to move my grades up. And also my parents studied with me to help me motivate myself to move more in my grades and also do more in my work.
From K3 coming up, I've been doing well. I've come first every time, and it's because of my grand aunt and my mother. So they expect me to do well in everything. So I've studied my homework, look over my subjects and everything that I can. And it all went through and I came first all the way up, going up. Even at graduation, I got awards for top achiever, being the top male in the subject, valedictorian, and others. Well, I did not have a timetable because I didn't really have the time, but I did take extra lessons each week with Mrs. Hall, my grade 6 teacher, and also Miss Fisher, my grade 5 teacher. And every time I went home, I studied, did my homework with my grand aunt. My grand aunt is my biggest motivator because she's always there for me, and every time I slack off and don't study, she always, well, push me back and let me study.
My greatest motivator is my teacher because she helped me when I don't understand my work, and she also explained to the whole entire class why I don't understand it, and she's just a huge motivator to me.
So because of COVID-19, we know that a lot has to be changed to prepare students for back to school this September. And so we want to ask Gianna and Dante, how are they feeling going back to school in this new normal?
Despite COVID, I'm looking forward to the extracurricular activities, the 4-H clubs, the gym, and also the education that they'll provide for young youths like me. Some of the safety procedures will be I have to wear masks, wash my hands daily with soap, and not greet each other in a way that we can touch each other.
I am a little afraid of COVID-19 because I have asthma, and that will give me the ability to have a shortening of breath, to have hard breathing. That's why I need to sanitize and wash my hands regularly and wear my mask most often.
And right now we're about to wrap up, but I hope you were jotting down notes on how these two students were able to excel in their exams despite the challenges. Here's some more advice just before we go.
My advice to new high schoolers like me is that there's a lot of challenges coming your way, but do your best no matter what. And as it relates to COVID-19, wear your mask most often, wash your hands and sanitize. Be safe.
Although some primary school students did not get the school of their choice, I'm hoping that they will go to the school, make new friends, and do their best to be the best. Just like the pandemic just now, you don't know what might happen, so you must do your best in everything that they give you, every test. Try your best, study hard, and make sure you study, put everything down right if you can, and then let everything see out. With that said, all the best.
And this is the final stop in today's magazine. Thanks so much for journeying with us. As we go, we implore you to stay connected via our website, gis.gov.jm, or our YouTube channel. And while you're online, send your feedback to Jamaica Magazine at gis.gov.jm or via our social media pages. On behalf of the entire GIS production crew, I'm Audrey Williams, reminding you to be safe and to keep our children protected.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.